Next, we are going to have Jane Velez Mitchell in 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And a high octane presentation that we always had is convergence. So all of you take a few minutes to be. We'll have a short break and we'll be back in.
Jane will be here in about 5 minutes. Jane, I'm making you a co-host right now.
myself.
Yeah, and Dr. Rao will be right back.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, hi, Dr. Rao.
How are you?
Good.
Yes.
Should I take it away?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first, I would love to say thank you, Dr. Rao, and your entire team for putting this together. I think it's really important that we have conversations right now. And what I'd like to figure out is how I share it. Yes, I'm going to share my screen right off the bat. For those of you who don't know, I'm the founder of UnchainedTV, which is the world's only vegan streaming television network. You can see it right behind me if you, let's see, make your full screen. It's right there, and I'm going to show you a little bit of it. And what we do is an end run around the mainstream media blackout on veganism. And right now we're under attack. Our entire movement is under attack, and we have to figure out how we're going to respond to that. And I definitely don't have the answers, but I think we have to talk about it, and we have to be realistic about it. So I just want to start by sharing my screen and playing a little bit of Matthew Glover. He is one of the, I think, smartest people in our entire movement, and he does advocacy, veganuary, and undercover investigations. He's also with the vegan food group that has acquired a bunch of companies and using economies of scale. So he was interviewed recently by one of our hosts, Najashi, and I would like to play a little bit about what he said, and then we can take it from there. Now, I would like to share my sound, and just tell me if you can share screen. Here we go.
David and Goliath type of.
Let's see here. Give me 1 second, guys. There we go. So let's listen to what he has to say just a little bit.
It's a David and Goliath type of scenario where you've got this huge meat industry, this animal industrial complex with thousands of lobbyists and lots of money to be able to create doubt. And they've done a great job over the last couple of years in creating doubt about meat alternatives. I keep thinking, what is our slingshot? What is that tool that's going to beat the Goliath? I feel like the stone is truth. We have truth on our side, but what I don't know is what is the weapon, what is the tool that's going to deliver that truth? I'd never heard of Tofu Town either, being honest with you, but we've acquired the business. It has 2 facilities. The one in Lundberg near Hamburg is massive. I mean, I got my 10,000 steps in just having a tour around the factory. It's just to give you an idea on the scale. It's got warehousing with up to 5,000 pallets. It's got huge lines. Over the years, this business has invested tens of millions in machinery and in equipment. They're a major supplier into Aldi, Lidl, Edeka, DM. They supply HelloFresh, all of this in the German market. So they're more of a private label supplier, which is why they maybe have gone under the radar a bit. But I think the Lundberg factory, as far as I'm aware, it's the biggest plant-based factory in Europe, possibly the world. I mean, I need to double check it, but it is, honestly, it's massive. So we're looking at that from a vegan food group perspective and thinking,
hi there, I've got some great guests coming up in the pipeline. So do please subscribe so you don't miss out. Now back to the show. Hi there and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome back Matthew Glover, the Chief Mission Officer from the Vegan Food Group. He owns several brands such as VFC, Meatless Farms and Clive's Pies. And he's already come on once, so if you haven't seen that episode, please do go back and watch it. He was also the co-founder of Veganuary and helped launch Veg Capital. Hey, Matthew, how you doing?
Hey, Alan, thanks for having me on the podcast again. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. And you're joining us from Cape Town and you're working from there.
All right, guys, I wanted to give you a sense because honestly, I was watching this last night and I was like, It's an hour broadcast. You can go in and see the whole thing from beginning to end. But basically, with the vegan food group, he has now consolidated purchasing these other companies, including this tofu town, which, as he said, was more private label. So you might not have heard about it so much. But the whole point, he's trying to achieve economies of scale and, in his way, fight back against what's happening right now in the vegan movement, is that we're under attack. So I would urge all of you to watch that because it's really educational. And as I was watching it last night, I was like, this is what we should be talking about. We should be talking about how to develop strategies to counteract what's happening today. So I know the theme is the stories we tell, but it's really also the stories they tell, the lies that they're telling about our movement. So let me see here if I can share my screen again. And I can. And just go through some of the pointers that I wanted to discuss. The stories they tell. Let's focus a little bit on some of the lies that are being told about our movement right now. Now, Piers Morgan, who I don't know why he so passionately hates vegans. Maybe he had a very bad date with a vegan once. I don't know, but he is on the warpath against us. He recently did this show on Sky News, Is Veganism Dead? A vegan restaurant is offering meat to attract more customers. Jamie Logan on the left did a great job. She's an amazing activist who's featured extensively on UnchainedTV. She has Jamie's Corner. She also works with Gen V. She did when she could get a word in edgewise. I mean, between him and his cohort, they barely allowed her to speak. But when she could speak, she made a good point. So you have those kinds of attacks. And then this article, I'm trying to get this a little bit smaller here so we can see it. This just came out the other day. Inc. This Michelin star chef switched to a plant-based menu. Then it blew up in his face. I'll make it even smaller so we can read all the details. David Humm courted disaster when he leaned into sustainability and reinvented 11 Madison Park with a vegan menu. Now, actually, the article itself is not as bad as the headline, but 90% of the people just read the headline. I could cite dozens of examples of articles like this that are happening now. All right. And as far as the good news stories, these are just some of the exciting companies that are coming up. Meatless Farms is owned by Matthew Glover's vegan food group. There's plenty of others. Those stories aren't being told. I recently had the honor of interviewing Ethan Brown, the CEO of Beyond Meat. And, he is just an amazing, amazing guy. And he acknowledged that our industry and his company in particular is under attack right now. And what he said was, strong winds make the strongest branches. And we are going to respond to these attacks that were, ultra processed, et cetera, by just making a better product. So they've just come out with, and I'll take this back to 100% so we can see it. They've just come out with 4.0 Beyond Burger with avocado oil, has 75% less saturated fat than your average burger, and is packed with protein. We got a chance to sample it. It's in the stores. I urge everybody to go out and buy it. It's delicious. It's healthy. It answers a lot of these ridiculous criticisms about being processed. It has even fewer ingredients. And, nobody mentions when they're doing these stories that processed meat is officially cancer-causing, according to the World Health Organization. So any plant-based product is healthier than processed meat. But yet that never gets into the conversation. So what we have is a situation where our media, which is advertiser-based, and look at the advertising, it's the fast food and pharmaceuticals for the most part, they've co-opted the media, and we're under attack. That's one of the reasons I started Unchained TV. I was in the media for 38 years. I know how they work. Okay. I've been behind the curtain, and we need to do an end run around the mainstream media's twisting of our story. So how do we do that? That's what I don't have all the answers. I'm asking everybody to put their thinking caps on and this is why it's great to have these kinds of convergences where we have conversations. So let's just recap and review. This was 2019. Beyond Meat, when it came out, and just human nature and media, we love to build up, whether it's a corporation or an individual, a star, build them up and then tear them down. Well, there was a huge amount of positive publicity when Beyond Meat first had its IPO in 2019. It was the most successful initial public offering since the 2008 financial crisis. You see here CNBC reporting the stock surged 500%. Of course, that's not sustainable. Beyond Meat's, New York Times, Beyond Meat's share price surges on first day of trading. Nothing goes straight up forever. We all know that. So we have to also put this whole issue into context and step back and take a big picture approach. It doesn't matter what technology, what new innovation we're talking about. Nothing has ever gone straight up. And so I started thinking about looking back in recent history at some of the ups and downs of other innovative technologies, because really this is food technology. As somebody said, and I thought it was brilliant, everything else has progressed. How we drive, how we move around. We're no longer getting to from point A to point B on horseback. We're not lighting candles. I have 2 lights on me here that are electrical. So the only thing that hasn't really evolved with modern times is food in terms of how we're eating food. It's gotten industrialized in a horrible sense, and vis-a-vis factory farming and concentrated animal feeding operations, but the essential technology has not evolved. And I thought, brilliant. Yes, that's exactly the case. So let's look back. Now, I remember seeing the documentary Who Killed the Electric Car, came out in 2006. I actually know a couple of people who had that initial GM electric car. So it was under development for many years, and then it came out, mass production, 1996, and then they shut it down in 1999, and they actually had to drag the car screaming. People were screaming, hanging on to it. No, don't take my electric car. It's a great documentary, and I want to actually look it up and watch it again. But of course, it didn't ultimately kill the electric car. It just wasted a lot of time and energy, and we had to wait, okay, till the documentary. So the electric car was 1996 to 1999. That's the GM, I think it was called EV1. Then they killed it. Then the movie came out in 2006. And in 2010, what do we have? The Tesla IPO. The rest is history. Now we have electric cars. They're the coolest thing on the block. Who had the last laugh? Electric cars. But the sad fact is we had to wait because of short-sightedness. And I think I read somewhere, I don't know if I should quote anybody, but the person who made that decision, I read an article years ago, and it stuck with me that he said it was the worst decision of his life. Okay, short-term thinking. That's what we're talking about. So I was also around for the dot-com bubble. I'm sure you were too. Actually, it was crazy right before the bubble. I live near Santa Monica. I'm in Marina Del Rey, and there was this sort of event that they used to have all the time where all these dot-commers would go and hobnob, and we would have fun. It was a big party. And I went with my friend at the height of the dot-com, and she wore a tag that said selfhell.com as a joke. But it was so crazy at that time that people actually took her seriously, and they were like, tell us about self-hell. What's your valuation? I mean, you got to laugh, right? Things get crazy when you're hitting that bubble point, and then boom. However, the internet had the last laugh, okay? It came back, right? And so obviously we all know of companies that had we invested at that time when everybody thought, oh, the bubble and the World Wide Web is dead. We would all be, billionaires if we had just chosen the right companies at that time of mass hysteria that it was all falling apart. The reason I say that is to remind everybody that we will win in the end. But the question is, for me, how long is it going to take? because we're running up against the clock. With Dr. Rao, I produced a documentary called Countdown to Year Zero, which basically profiles Dr. Rao's assertion that we have to switch to a global plant-based culture by 2026 in order to avoid a climate apocalypse. Well, guess what, people? We're almost halfway through 2024. So one of the big problems is that we may not have the luxury of waiting for something to come back in the number of years that it's taken for certain other technologies, to have that bounce back. So I was just thinking of all the different factors that we need to consider. This is just a potpourri. There's no really rhyme or reason to it, except I made a list of everything I thought we needed to discuss or think about in terms of how are we going to now get to the next phase. So first of all, I think we have to acknowledge that there is this retrenchment happening now because we're under attack by the meat and dairy industry and the big pharma industry. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds about who, what, when, where, why, how is doing this exactly, but it was reported by somebody in the know who was on a panel at the Vegan Women's Summit in Brooklyn last year. And she said there's a war room the size of Fox News where they push out all this stuff about soy boy and meat. Plant-based meats are ultra processed and they're plastic. I can't independently confirm that, but certainly if you look at the media, it seems like, yes, that is happening. I know Robbie Lockie, who's an incredible activist, formerly with Plant-Based News, and he started his own organization, is doing a deep dive into the misinformation issue. But I just thought I would take a second to catalog a whole bunch of issues that flew into my head when I was thinking about this subject matter. What do we have to cover? Well, certainly a lot of people say, look, you can beat your chest all you want about the horrors of factory farming, and I spent a lot of time doing that. But when it comes to consumers, it all boils down to taste, cost, and convenience. So I think we do have to take that under consideration. We do have to think about taste, cost, convenience as factors. Then, obviously, our arguments, like Matthew Glover said, our stone in our, whatever you call that, boom, is truth. And so what we have, human health, we've got these great documentaries, You Are What You Eat, a twin experiment, the Game Changers, and we've got a lot of them on UnchainedTV, Eating Our Way to Extinction, Forks Over Knives, Vegucated, the list goes on and on and on. We have documentaries and shows about health, climate, obviously climate, and Dr. Rao has made a very strong argument that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. People dispute that, but he's offered to debate anyone at any time. And so far, nobody has successfully debated him on this issue. He debated at the Oxford Union along with Joey Carbstrong and a few others, and they won. Our side won. And I'm still trying to get the videos from them. They refused to give me the videos to post on Unchained TV, which says a lot, right? And then, of course, the issue of compassion, which motivates me most of all, along with climate, but certainly compassion. All three, but I'm motivated primarily by I can't sleep at night thinking about what's being done to these animals, these innocent animals. So then other aspects of this, we have to think about the media. I just talked about the media. The government obviously subsidizes animal agriculture. The dairy industry would collapse immediately if it weren't for government subsidies. People aren't drinking milk. Liquid milk consumption has plummeted. So, that's a good fact for our side. But unfortunately, the government is propping up the industry. And then there's the corporations that have co-opted both the government and the media. I mean, if you think about it, the pillars of our democracy are, legislative, executive, and the fourth estate, the media. They've all been co-opted by I would call what has been described as the meat industrial complex, which includes big pharma, which has more lobbyists on Capitol Hill than any other industry. So, we have in terms of finding our, what is that? I forget what they call that, slingshot. Our slingshots, we have these great businesses that are up and coming, and we have nonprofit advocacy. Now, when it comes to the businesses, yes, there is a shakeout right now, just like there was a shakeout in the dot-com bubble. My friend with her fake website, selfhell.com, did not survive. But the big, good companies, the strong companies, the companies with something really good did survive. So when a shakeout occurs, the strong and the efficient will survive. And I think you're going to see that right now with some of the businesses. It's just a natural consequence of, exuberance, a lot of money going into different companies, and some of them are better than others. So we're going to see the really good ones survive. And the other thing I'd like to say is that a lot of the big companies, one of the stories that's not being told is that a lot of the most successful vegan companies have been bought up by conglomerates, and nobody talks about those. Silk, Violife, Gardein, Tofurky, the list goes on and on and on. Those are very successful companies. Funny enough, they don't get attacked. The ones that are bought up by big conglomerates are not attacked. It's only the ones that remain vegan, vegan companies that are not owned by big multinational conglomerates. Then you have obviously culture, trends, and celebrity. I bring that in because ultimately, as Dr. Rao has said, this is a cultural issue. We have to switch the culture, and that happens through trends. We all know about the tipping point, Malcolm Gladwell's hypothesis. I think it's like 3.5% of the population. When we hit that, we flip. And then we live in a celebrity culture. Celebrity it's like when you're playing Monopoly, you've got that special card that gets you where you want to go. Celebrity is one of those things. So we have to really focus on that as well. And then, of course, it all boils down to money, 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 money. Where is this venture capital money and big money going? Unfortunately, certainly animal advocacy does not get a lot at all. And if it does, a lot of it goes to dogs. Is very, percentage-wise, very, very little it goes into helping cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, and lambs. And the last thing I'll say is, let's never forget the law of unintended consequences and surprises that can come down the pike, good or bad. Sometimes when you think, what are we going to do? And then something will just happen and boom, it's a game changer. So I thought COVID was going to be that game changer because it seemed pretty obvious to me it was a zoonotic illness, and it probably originated in the wet market. And even if it came from the lab, they were torturing animals in the lab. It's our abuse of animals, but that didn't do it. Well, now we're dealing with the bird flu that has jumped to cows, and who knows what that's going to bring. And the final thing I want to say is, look at this smoking commercial. I keep coming back to it because I smoked as a teenager. I wanted to be cool. And then all of a sudden, one day, smoking went from being super cool to being, well, look at that lady. Do you want to be like her? So we have to come up with something that is the equivalent of this for meat eating. Because they're describing it as family values and health, and for men, masculinity, and for women, it's the femininity of the dairy, and it's all this stuff. And actually, Matthew Glover was talking about a campaign that was run promoting lamb as a way to bring your family together. And he said, it was frustrating because it was so well produced. But everybody, put your thinking caps on. We need, because this killed, at least in the United States, smoking went from being very glamorous to being very unglamorous because of one very brilliant advertising campaign. So I've kind of given an overview of where I think, we're at and what we need to talk about. And I would love to open it up for dialogue, what people think, where we need to go. Oh, I want to say two other things. Well, one very, very intensely. Stop infighting. I am absolutely up to here with it. On our website, we say if you have a problem with somebody in our movement, call the police, call a lawyer, leave me out of it. Keep it off social media. If you have a problem, keep it off social media because the animals are the ones that suffer. We're all human beings. We're not all going to get along all the time, but we must cut out the infighting now. It is toxic and it is hurting animals. That is something I want to say in a very strong way because I see how it's hurting animals and we just have to stop it. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear from other people. I don't know if Dr. Rao wants to weigh in on some of these things. Where do we go from here? How can we bounce back fast and furious? Hello, anybody home?
Yes, we're here. We're thinking about your.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
Well, I will just say, I think that, and I'll go ahead and come on, I guess. Hi, Jane.
Hi.
It's brilliant. And I think that your idea of making it less glamorous, I mean, just like that smoking campaign, you look at the older movies and the women are very glamorous, and that's the whole idea. And so I think you're right on. But how to do it, I don't know. But I mean, we've seen some cute little videos of people digging into some animals and then the forest dying in the background. I saw that one time. So.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say that I forgot to say, I said two things and then I just said one thing. I'm begging everybody, stop repeating the meat industry talking points. I have to tell people all the time. I have a friend who comes in here, oh, I would never touch that. It's processed. She's hearing these talking points and repeating them. And I basically said it in a nice way, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Because when you're talking like that, animals are dying. Okay? Any vegan product is automatically healthier than any meat or dairy product. All vegan products are zero cholesterol. And the word process is being thrown around and misused. If you take a mango and a banana and stick it in a blender, it's processed. All processed is not equal. So when you look, I eat vegetables too. I get Farm Fresh to You, delivers vegetables. I just made some vegetables. I'm not saying don't eat vegetables. What I'm saying is don't trash plant-based products that are on the market. Please don't do that because every time somebody doesn't eat one of those and they eat an animal suffers and dies. Continue on, please.
Hey, Jane.
Hey.
Of course, we love all the documentaries and the truth that's shared on Unchained TV, but there's also the opportunity to tell stories through fiction. And you just said that the truth is important, and fiction is hopefully has some truth behind it. Sean Monson was on a call, and he's of course the director of Earthlings, the documentary otherwise known as The Vegan Maker. And he was saying documentaries can only go so far. And he said we need some sort of a Trojan horse to get behind the opposition to veganism and install our values into society in ways that are kind of sneaky, a little bit go to where people are being entertained and let them learn, because documentaries influence a lot of people. They're very important, but they're kind of that second step, that they're the seed that's already germinated and somebody sits down and watches a documentary and has a transformational experience. But how do they get there? People will avoid documentaries when they don't want to learn.
Well, I agree with you. I think we have to offer everybody all sorts of alternatives. A lot of people, and we have Earthlings streaming on Unchained TV as well as Dominion and other hardcore films, along with some lighthearted ones like Vegucated. That's much easier to for people who are squeamish, and Forks Over Knives. So there's a whole variety of documentaries, and I agree with you 100%. That's right. That's why right now, Jamie Logan and myself and Justina Adorno are writing a screenplay that's a comedy, and we'll see how that goes, right? It's very hard to produce fictional video content. Everybody thinks, I liken it to writing a nonfiction book versus a novel. I've written both, but the novels I threw in my fireplace. Much harder. And screenplays are even harder. Nonfiction, which I've written 4 and 2 were New York Times bestsellers, you have a subject, you research it, you break it down into chapters. It's doable, but anybody can write a novel, anybody can write a screenplay. It's writing a good one that's hard. And I personally think screenplays might be the hardest of all because every single word, every single action has to move toward arcs that are going to lead to, there is a formula there. And so I think we should do it, but I also think people should do what they're good at. And just like I wouldn't open a restaurant because I set things on fire. And I don't know if I'm qualified to write a screenplay. I mean, we're doing it as a project because of that very reason. We have to have something uplifting. One of the reasons is there's too much depressing content. We struggle with that at Unchained TV. We have a lot of fun content, a lot of talk shows and a lot of fun cooking shows and a lot of travel shows, but there's also a lot of serious, it's hard. I have to upload them and watch them and it's difficult. And I don't want to traumatize myself again. One of the reasons I started Unchained TV is that I've been to a gazillion screenings where every single person in the room is vegan and we're watching this hardcore, traumatizing animal abuse. I don't want to see it. I want non-vegans to see it, pre-vegans to see it. That's the whole point. Another one of our challenges is that we're in a vegan bubble, talking to each other all the time. And that might be the case right now. But it's important to strategize. But I would say, we have to use mass media. There's 8.1 billion human beings on this planet. And take all that energy that you spend trying to deal with that one cousin who will always order a steak and put it into social media or support Unchained TV. Look, I don't take a salary. We're a nonprofit. We need monthly donors. If you want to give $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month, we could really use that. We're very low overhead, but we're doing what companies, I just read the other day that one of these big networks lost $2 billion, $2.5 billion 1 year on their streaming network. I mean, we made ours for like $45,000, but we do need support. So I'll put it in the chat. It's actually fun to be a part of it. We do, special events. We have parties. We have Zooms where we tell you in depth what we're doing. We have some exciting things coming up. I don't want to reveal it yet, but we've got some exciting developments in the pipeline. I think they're going to be pretty mind-blowing, knock on wood, if they come to fruition. I never want to promise before something's done, but I'll just say unchainedtv.com/donate. We are 501c3. Anything you donate is tax deductible. But yeah, I mean, we have to tell our story more effectively to the mass media. So Liz Gary, who does TikTok lives for Unchained TV, what are your thoughts, my dear? Oh, you got to unmute.
Unmute.
Pretty good.
Okay. Hey, Jane.
Hi.
Nice to see you. I'm
you too.
so in agreement with you about the urgency that we need to do everything we can right now to move forward, and that the infighting and all that stuff is really not going to help us at all.
Yeah.
So celebrate all vegan foods. And one of the things that I think is most important is that we go to where you can't get the information right now, and that's our schools. And schools limit children's access to information about the foods that they're serving in the cafeteria. And what you need to do, we need reform in education. So I suggest everyone look up their local school district's board of trustees meetings and get onto the open mic opportunity to talk about what you can do to create change. So I'm looking forward to doing my part here coming up. All right. I got my black belt in tofu program coming up and some good things that I'm hoping to reform chef training programs and get to culinary schools and give people a challenge to learn how to cook alternatives for meat, seafood, eggs, and dairy. And I'm glad to be on the team here, but like you said, yeah, we need to get out of the bubble. We need to go into the community. We need to leverage resources out there, and they're there, like teaching free vegan cooking classes in the public libraries. They're waiting for us to come and do it. And the best news of all, my 10-year-old grandson, kids swarm him at lunchtime because they're interested, they're ready. I've led the vegan clubs in the high school. The kids are ready. We just need to bridge that gap and help reform education. Children need consumer education. Chefs need training in plant-based foods, and we need to continue to see our doctors focus on food as medicine. And we'll get there. We're going to get there, but we need reform in education because people have been brainwashed so long and so hard that it's too inconvenient and frightening for them to make the change because they feel like they're not going to fit in. And it takes an effort to be vegan in today's world.
You do a great job, and you also, just what I've noticed for Unchained TV, you took it upon yourself to go live on TikTok. You know, you're reaching thousands of people on TikTok. So anytime you're going to take that effort to have a long conversation with one person, pivot and put it on social media. Because we've got to reach more numbers. And so I appreciate that, Liz, and keep it going.
Keep it going. Well, let's do help us out, Jane. We need like a tutorial on how we can maximize our airtime. And I still don't know things like how to even exit a live TikTok program. I have to turn my phone off. So little stuff like that can be.
Yeah, well, I'm not a wizard of all that. We all have to figure it out on our own. Like I say, everybody's an assignment editor. You know, I wake up every morning and there's 14 different assignments. Do this, do that. I'm like, you do it. Do it. I can't do all this stuff.
Okay, I'll keep trying.
Thank you so much, Liz, but I appreciate you a lot. I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, and I appreciate you too, Jane, because there are days that I wake up from this struggle, you know, because it feels like a struggle. We've been working at this for years and years, and I'll watch one of your interviews and I will feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. We can do this. We can do it together. So your work is actually helping to fuel my confidence to continue moving forward and creating change. So that's where it all comes together.
Thank you, Liz. It's a team effort, and a lot of the team members are on this Zoom. So thank you to all of you who participate. So who else is weighing in?
I can ask you something, Jane.
Oh, sure.
I know that you've been covering some of the most important events in the vegan movement, and no one else is covering. You know, it's like you're the only one covering. It's like you're sort of creating these footprints in history.
Oh, thank you. Well, I look up to you a lot, Dr. Rao, and any words of encouragement from you mean a lot. And I've always said, the first time I heard you, I knew, oh my gosh, this person has the key, because I had remembered reading that until you articulate your goal, how are you going to reach it? If you can't even say we want a vegan world, how the hell are you going to get there when you can't even bring yourself to say it? And I remember you were speaking at the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and you said, we're going to have a vegan world. We know why we have to do it. We know when we have to do it by, and we're just going to figure out how we're going to do it. And we're still dealing with the how, but it was very important that you set that intention. And so if you want to learn more about how Dr. Rao develop climate healers and the convergences, you can watch Countdown to Year Zero on Unchained TV. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's free. You can download it on your phone by just going to your app store, completely free. And there it is right on your phone. You just put in Unchained TV, one word. You can put it on any Samsung TV. I'm going to move this. It's been bugging me. The Samsung TV behind me is is it's just right there, right next to Netflix and Amazon Prime. You just you go into the App Store. These new modern TVs are just like, they're like desktops for computers. They're giant desktops for computers, and you just go into the App Store and put in Unchained TV. And if you have an Amazon Fire Stick, a Roku device, or an Apple TV device, you can do the same thing. Just click on it, go to the App Store, and put in Unchained TV. And you can watch it online at watchunchainedtv.com. Just watchunchainedtv.com. So I'm going to type that in too before anybody forgets. So please do that. And, everybody who downloads it helps. It's a community. It doesn't belong to me. It's a nonprofit. It belongs to everybody. And any films that you know of that are great, that are in the category, please bring them to me. We would love to add them. And I just spoke yesterday with the International Vegan Film Festival. It's taken over by a very, very bright young woman, Emma. I'm not sure of her last name, maybe Schwartz, but she's doing very dynamic things with the International Vegan Film Festival, and we're going to be collaborating with her on a lot of those things. So we've got a lot going on. But Dr. Rao, what was your question? You said, things that we're covering. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Frankly, put me out of business. I would love so many people to be covering these issues that I could go out to the beach and be reading a trashy novel and eating some vegan chocolate bonbons. Okay. The reason I'm doing all this is that these stories aren't getting covered. And I hate to say it, but you almost have to get naked or get arrested and risk jail time to get covered in mainstream media. Okay. So, for example, Wayne Shung, who is a former constitutional law professor, the founder of Direct Action Everywhere, was facing 16 years in prison in Sonoma County for alleged conspiracy. He was convicted. Conspiracy to trespass and trespass. I mean, this is a dynamic story. There were all sorts of demonstrations outside the courthouse. There was all sorts of drama inside. No reporters, day after day. We were live with a panel.
Right.
Because I used to do court TV along with CNN Headline News. I also would fill in when people went on vacation. I would go in and fill in at court TV. So it's exactly, we've been doing exactly what we did on court TV. We have a panel, we have a reporter at the courthouse, and we cover it. And it's actually fun and exciting. We had a breakthrough just about a week ago. Wayne Shung was in a Wisconsin courtroom demanding a special prosecutor investigate a laboratory beagle breeding facility there that he alleges has committed violations of law and cruel treatment of animals. We were able to go live inside the courtroom during the court proceeding, which was a first for us. And that was very exciting. That really brought me back to my days covering trials, big trials like, my gosh, the Jodi Arias trial, Michael Jackson, we were still outside the courtroom, but Jodi Arias, there was cameras in the courtroom. And so it was very exciting to have that breakthrough. And we'd like to do more of that. But the truth is, the point is, where's the media?
I know, but Jane, what you're doing, if you ask me what you're doing, it's like you are the only journalist who's covering Rosa Parks, sitting in the front of the bus. You're the only journalist covering it. So you know what? In the future, they're going to be looking to you.
Oh.
You are writing history. This is what I want you to feel amazing and awesome for who you really are, because you are doing it. Okay? You are doing it.
Thank you. And it's a team effort, as I said. It's not just me. Like Carla Cabral, who was at the courthouse, Tiffany Brunelli, all the, it was such a team of people, the people who came on as panelists. Paige was a panelist, Paige Parsons Roach, and various other people, including attorneys that we had. We had a member of the European Parliament who was so upset that Wayne was being prosecuted that he spoke to the European Parliament and made a speech. And our social media director, Michelle Celestino, tracked him down. And he was part of our panel from Spain or somewhere in Europe. But that was exciting as well. But yeah, we want the main. Now I'm not saying there's never any coverage. When he was convicted, like I said, you have to get naked or risk prison. There were articles, Vox, The Intercept, some local papers, they do report on the big development, but these trials should be covered a day in and day out when they're happening. And they're not.
Yeah. No, it's no, but I'm saying, I have patience and I have faith that whatever you're doing is going to be viewed in history.
Thank
That is
you.
one of the most important things that a journalist did during this time.
Well, I hope you're right. And I hope that
Oh.
I hope we get to that point sooner
Yeah.
rather than later where the mainstream media, the New York Times, every so often they have this thing where they go back and they apologize for
Right.
racist, sexist, terrible writing that was considered culturally acceptable when at the time, and they go back and they look and they're horrified by their own articles and they call themselves into account and they say, oh my God, was this sexist? Wow, did we write this in a sexist way, or were we disparaging or dismissive of this group or that group? So they're going to have to go and write a lot of apology articles about what they are not covering and how they're covering this movement. Because the other thing that people are doing is, if anybody in our movement makes a mistake, okay? So Sam Bankman-Fried is a vegan. And they can't stop talking about that. But what about all the other people committing crimes or accused of committing crimes who eat meat? Do we ever discuss that?
Right.
Okay, no. So it's almost like we're supposed to be absolute saints. And if anybody does anything wrong, all of a sudden it's because they're vegan. No, that's not why. We're a big enough movement now that we have people who have all sorts of character defects. Thank God.
Right. Emek has a question for you.
Oh, sure.
She's asking, can you do like a what's happening in the vegan world daily news? Like a 10-minute segment at the end of the day or something like that.
Like I said, everybody's an assignment editor. Come on and produce it for me and shoot it and get the information and put it out there. And Emek, if you're willing to devote, okay, so I used to do like hour shows, and thank you, Emek. Emek isn't one of my heroes. I mean, she got tackled at the national football opener, the NFL opener, for protesting, and I'm kind of teasing you, Emek, but we did an hour show. I did an hour show every night for many years, and you're working from 7:30 in the morning right up until that show goes on the air, and it's 1 hour of content, and there's 30, 40 people who are putting it together. So a daily show, that would be great, but we need producers, we need writers, we need, there's a lot of things that have to go into that because you don't want to do something badly. Now, we are branching out to try to do different kinds of shows. And we just did one called The Doctor Moms. There's 2 doctors who are vegan, who are moms. And we just finished editing the first one. And, it's good. It's good information. It's going to get even better in terms of production values as we go on. But you have to start somewhere. If we wait for everything to be 100% perfect, we'd never do anything. So check that out, The Doctor Moms. We also had a weight loss series. Also, one of the things that we say is dogs are a gateway drug to animal rights. Just yesterday, I was driving, listening to CNN, and apparently some politician, I never heard who, because I caught it halfway through, did something horrible to animals. She either shot goats or talked about shooting goats. And this entire panel was up in arms. And how could she do this? Doesn't she know that we're all animal lovers? And of course, what she did was horrible. If what they're saying is accurate, I condemn her as well. But the point was, they're all talking about, and we're a nation of animal lovers. There's a dash number of million dogs and people love their dogs. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I was on that panel saying, you guys are all animal lovers. What about the cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, and lambs? Do you love them too? Because we're killing 80 billion a year. and you're eating some of them. And so, you know, I had mixed feelings about it, because on the one hand, I was glad that they were talking about how Americans are animal lovers, but their understanding of an animal lover is very limited. So I do feel dogs, and I have 2 dogs, rescues, who are vegan, but I feel like we could do more with dogs to get people in the tent. That's why we're doing a dog training series, because my 2 dogs were frankly out of control, and I needed a dog trainer, and I have a vegan animal rights dog trainer who is really a dog educator. And basically she says, anything that happens is your fault, Jane, never the dog's. And so the point is, though, that we're doing some of that to get people like, oh yeah, I want to do this with my dog. And then maybe they'll go to some other piece of content.
Right. Good idea. Yeah. But I mean, the good news is that it's more and more, I see the mainstream opening up. I spoke at 3 different Unitarian churches, for Earth Day. And a few years ago, I had gone to a Unitarian church and given a talk, and they just didn't want me to ever come back, right? It's like, I felt like they said, we don't want to hear this now, right? But now they're back. They're asking for it. The same church that I went to asked me to come back in June.
Well, let me ask you, Dr. Rao. I mean, I think we all have to acknowledge that we are in a bit of we are back on our heels a little bit, right? At this moment. So looking at all those different factors that I mentioned that we have to consider, all the different things, where do you see us going? Where do you see us vis-a-vis your timeline that we have to go vegan by 2026?
Right. So it's a matter of getting the public to say they want it. They want to save their children. They want to save this planet. They don't want to see it die off. They don't want to see their children suffering and their grandchildren suffering. Okay. As soon as they make the determination, it's just a determination. They just have to make that determination. The solutions are there right now. They're waiting for us. There's plenty of food on the planet for us to all go vegan. Okay. So there's plenty. So everything is there. It's not, so we have the refrigeration technology, the transportation technology to move food from here to there. We can feed all 8 billion people a healthy vegan food. We can do all these things. We know how to do these things. The UN is saying it wants to do these things, but they're not doing it. They're pretending to do it by just growing the economy. Now we are calling them out on it. So I say that, we have to keep at it. But the solutions are there. So we don't have to think linearly, based on what has been happening and, say that it's going to go linearly like that. I say all transformation is nonlinear. All transformation is exponential. It just, once you make a determination we want to do it, we have the wherewithal to put our heads together and do it. Within a month, within a couple of months, you can do it. Okay.
Wow.
That's how dams burst.
Well,
Right?
I hope it's coming around the bend. I do want to say, Sarah mentioned Tony does go live. Tony Shale, amazing, goes live almost every day on TikTok and gets many thousands and thousands and thousands of views. We love you, Tony. Thank you for your hard work. But let me ask you this, Dr. Rao, and I'm not a fan, but Henry Ford did say, if I asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses.
Right.
So what do you make? How does that dovetail with your suggestion that the people have to ask for this? Because I think there's a big school of thought that say basically you program the people as to what they should want. Like right now, we're turning diseases into some kind of label that you wear. It's almost like, do you have blah blah? And the advertising is kind of like, well, you should be proud that you have this blah blah, and so you can take this blah blah pill, and I've got my this, and they're dancing around, I've got my blah blah blah, and it's just psycho. It's like, what happened? What planet are we on?
Right.
But yeah, so what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I'm at an age where all my classmates from college they all have, some chronic diseases or the other, right? So we are now, exchanging information. What happened? How are you getting a Medicare? How are you getting a coverage? This sort of thing, right? And I tell them, I need nothing. I only have, I only take my my B12 supplements, and I'm done. Right? So it is. And they ask them, so how are you doing it? And the conversation starts, and getting people to understand that there is another way, that there is a better way. And this vegan world, to me, is like Henry Ford saying, that they don't know what they want. I'm going to give them a car. So here we are saying they don't know what they want. We're going to give them a vegan world. That's what they really want. Okay? They think that they want something, just a little bit better than what they have. No, you need something that is based on health, not on diseases. It's based on, happiness, not on death and destruction for the planet. So it's creating this new vision and owning it. So that's what I say. That's what Henry Ford did, right? Owned it. And then people said, oh yeah, I want that. And then as more and more people wanted it, then he had GM and all the big corporations come along and build it for you. So people have to want it. And normally when I come to the Bay Area, I'm now in the San Francisco Bay Area, I barely get to meet my classmates normally because they know that I'm an outsider. I'm talking about these other things that's not in the mainstream. This time, I have 3 invitations in 5 days.
Wow.
Okay.
Well,
so it's opening
I
up.
ask you another question. So you're in Silicon Valley because it keeps coming back. Like I ran into Matthew Glover at the Mercy for Animals Gala. By the way, we were the only Unchained TV, aside from Getty, which doesn't really, Getty takes photos and records video, but then you would have to buy it from them. It's not like NBC or CBS or ABC. So we were the only media there, except for one woman from a Northern California TV station who on her own dime came down because she's a vegan and it's shot something hoping that maybe her station would run it. But basically we were the only news media there. And the same thing with Christspiracy. Christspiracy's Skirball premiere was incredible. Celebrities, and it was incredible. It's an amazing movie. And yet where was the media covering that?
Right.
So, I keep thinking Silicon Valley, I am reading the Elon Musk biography now because I think it's really interesting. We have to stay on top of how these technological changes. He's obviously a very controversial figure and there's a lot. Neuralink, some of the things he said very much disturb me, and I'm just trying to get information. And so, I keep thinking there's literally like 10 people who, if they decided, and Bill Gates has kind of said, we have to switch to synthetic meat, but there's these maybe 10, 15 high-tech billionaires, you get 1 or 2 of them to say, you know what, Dr. Rao, you're right, we're going to do this. Boom. Literally, Bill Gates could turn a huge percentage of all farmland in the United States that he owns into reforesting if he wanted to. There's Sergey Brin, there's, Jeff Bezos. Apparently, Jeff Bezos recently gave some funds to alternative proteins. So maybe you could, because all of them talk about wanting to solve, save humanity by going to Mars.
Right.
Well, that's not the answer, going to Mars. The answer is don't destroy planet Earth. And so is there any way we can get to these people? Because you have the answers. As I said earlier, you've said that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. You will debate anybody. And so far, nobody has debated you. People say that's not true. But then you say, well, come and debate me. And they either don't debate you, or with the Harvard Union, not Harvard, the Oxford Union Club, you won. And I mentioned they didn't give us, I keep asking them for those videos and they don't give them to us. So, and they're great. Your debate was fantastic. I would love to stream it.
I'm happy to come and stream it just for you. Just do the same debate just for you. Just set up a stage for me.
Yeah, but you had your whole outfit on and the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
place
I still
was
have
like
those outfits
Harry
with me.
Potter. It was, you can't replicate the whole scene.
That's true. The Harry Potter bit I
My
cannot
question,
replicate.
somebody has a question, Trojan horse. Cheap production. Yes, that's what we do. Cheap production, right? That's what we try to do. Cheap production that looks expensive, but that's very difficult too. But yeah, so you're filled with hope. You're not concerned, Dr. Rao.
No, I have faith more than hope. Hope comes from a position of fear. Faith comes from a position of love. I love the planet. I love my children. I love my grandchildren and all children of all species. And it is, I imagine that you've gone to Mars and you have managed to create the carbon cycle, the water cycle, the oxygen cycle, and you've created all the conditions for life to thrive on Mars. And you managed to grow some plants, and you managed to grow an insect on Mars, birth the first few insects on Mars. Then somebody comes along and steps on the insects and chops down all the plants. How would you feel? I'd say you would treat life as precious on Mars. Elon Musk would treat life as precious on Mars. All we have to do is to use the same mindset here on Earth, and the planet will be fine. So can we not do that? Of course we can do
how
that.
do we get to these people, the people who control the information supply? I mean, we all know who runs these big companies. There's probably 24 people if we got in touch with, if we managed to convince one of them. I don't understand how people who are that smart, okay, to build a rocket or to build a computer or to build an electric car, or to build a platform that can deliver a most obscure product overnight to your doorstep, you've got to be smart. How is it that these smart people don't get what is so obvious to all of us?
Oh, they get it. They just don't want to see it yet. So they get it. It's not that they don't understand. The arguments you're making are very, very simple. Half the trees are gone, so bring them back and you can solve the problem. That's not complicated to understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get how they don't see the urgency. If you're going to devote your life, for example, to try to make electric cars, purportedly, not just because you're a car freak, but because you want to solve the climate crisis, how you couldn't see the other side of the equation. What Matthew Glover was saying on this interview, which I urge everybody, go to Unchained TV and watch it. When we get done here, I'll make it more prominent so it's easy to find on the featured section. And, he was saying that, lost my train of thought, but he was saying something to the effect of, I lost it. It was something about all of this concerning these people of influence who should know, who should know better. Like, here's what he said. He said that if you look at the media, the animal agriculture impact on climate change is just not being reported. That's what he was saying. And when it is reported, it's reported the wrong way, basically about the cost of not having animal agriculture, not how the benefits of not having animal agriculture. So there's also another video we have on Unchained TV where somebody's talking about how AI poses a threat to animals because they're taking all the information that's available. And if we don't start putting more information in to AI about what's really happening to animals, it could accelerate animal abuse and automation of industrialized animal agriculture. There's a lot of problems, but anyway, we're out of time. It was.
Wait, I have a quick question for you, Jane. If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jane. It's for Dr. Rao and Jane, actually, because how I found out about Dr. Rao was through you, Jane. And then I heard about this pinky promise. So I wrote in the chat something about the pinky promise. Somebody's asking me, what did I mean by that? So, Jane, did you know about the pinky promise when you told me about Dr. Rao, or did you learn about that when we went to the first VCOP?
I think I learned about it in progress. The only thing I remember when I first met Dr. Rao at the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary was he came on stage, and it's kind of to your point, Dr. Rao, not that many people were listening to you because there were all this great food booths and everybody was eating and, playing the banjo and whatever they were doing. And you said, we are going to create a vegan world. We know why we have to do it. We know when we have to do it by 2026. We just need to figure out how we're going to do it. And when I heard that, it was like my head exploded. I was like, finally, somebody's saying what we want to do. That was the main thing.
And then Dr. Rao, the pinky promise for everyone is, what is it again? I'm not going to do it justice.
Right. The pinky promise is a promise that I made to my granddaughter that we will all stop eating her relatives, the animals, before she turns 16 in 2026. That's November 19th, 2026. Okay. And she's told me, I've told you what to do, just go do it.
She's also inspired me.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paige. You're an amazing activist. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Love you all. Hasta la vista.